What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, warriors of light of all ages? Joker back again once again, and today we are talking about something completely different. Recently, in their 6.1 patch, Final Fantasy XIV released a PvP game mode called Crystalline Conflict, and I'm kind of addicted to it. I mean, why wouldn't I be? I can do this. Dear Grid Coordinates, piss off.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Where to start? Crystal Clash is a 5v5 objective mode, where the objective is to move the crystal down the map, starting in the center. Now, this might seem obvious, but, well, you know, sometimes it's just not. Some people may not know that, especially while they're playing ranked. Now, the way you do this is by standing in the little circle and keeping the other team from doing the same. If this sounds like Overwatch or an elaborate reverse tug of war, you're not wrong. Each of the classes have been overhauled and simplified for PvP. In my opinion, the core of what makes the class, for the most part, at least as far as I can tell, or as far as I've played, or as far as the people who've played way more classes than I have unlocked have told me, they're mostly. I know somebody's gonna go, but Joker, my class was butchered in the comments, so Which is why I'm putting all these qualifiers before saying largely the identity of the class has been kept the same. But we're talking broad strokes. To me, all the PvP mode seems to have done is remove a lot of the button below that seems to have accrued over the last few years, and streamline the entire process for PvP. I wouldn't necessarily want this much streamlining in PvE, but it does feel very thought out in PvP. The only thing that I will say as a Dragoon, the class that I main all the time, and I'm sure other classes have this issue as well, is sometimes I feel like I need one more skill. Like, I'm just one skill short of a very solid, streamlined, feels good rotation. Because our ability Gear Skogul often feels like a dead perk. Now, don't get me wrong, Gear Skogul is actually really good. It has a potency of 4k, and increases the damage dealt by 25%. Sounds amazing. However, it also increases the damage suffered by 25%. So this is great until you have a ninja, samurai, or mechanist up your ass or sniping your ass, which you will. So this move basically gets saved to any time where I'm like, high risk, high reward, can I get away with it? And go into Whirlwind Thrust, or more importantly, my limit break, Sky High, as you see here. But other than that, the perk can often feel dead, leaving a hole in the rotation. And as I said, I'm sure other classes have the same issue as well. For me, it's just jarring because in PvE, Dragoon's rotation is pretty smooth. And I'm sure this sounds like I'm bitching to some, but it's not, because at the end of the day, you know what's probably more likely than my rotation being slightly off? I could just be bad at the game. Now, I want people to listen to what I'm about to say, especially Destiny 2 players if there's any still left watching this video, because I think it's important. I'm sure there are people watching this gameplay in the background, gameplay that I think is at the very least okay, going, bruh, this is rough, what are you even doing? But getting good at a game comes with learning and practice. Being willing to start out bad, being willing to get your shit kicked in, being willing to learn and grow, to move on to the next match, which is one of the best features about this game. If you're stomping or being stomped, the game's over in 2 to 3 minutes. If the game's relatively even, that means the game can go into overtime, which can last anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. And in the event you lose, you still get EXP, you still get gil, you still get rewards. This isn't the exercise in humiliation play most games tend to be. It's 2 minutes of wasted time. Oh wait, it's actually not that wasted because you still get rewards. And there's a lot of rewards, but more on that later. In a lot of games, the learning curve for PvP can be one of the most frustrating aspects, more so in games that are primarily PvE. Now, of course, my bias is always going to be towards PvP modes in any game, simply because I find it more fun, fascinating, engaging, whatever you want to call it, to face a player that can outthink me, or that I can outthink, instead of AI and mechanics that can be learned into repetition. I like the random element of other players. Here in Final Fantasy XIV, I have some clue of what I'm doing, and I think everybody in this PvP mode has the ability to start out somewhat proficient with their classes, or at the very least have some clue of what you're doing. Read your abilities, practice a little bit, and done. Then you take that very basic knowledge of how your class's attacks are supposed to flow, go into the casual version of CC, and learn the practical use of those abilities in real time. You will play a variety of people better, people worse, and people on level. And you may just learn something. And while I don't think I'm particularly great at the mode, to be fair, I did just pick the game mode up, yesterday, and I haven't played Final Fantasy XIV since December, I do feel like this mode is one of those rare instances where you have something that's easy to pick up, easy to understand, but also deceptively complex. Even now I've got that itch to get better, where I'm looking at my gameplay and going, okay, this is what you did wrong, you chased, you shouldn't have done that got you killed, or this is what you did right, you used Gear Skogul before going into Limit Break, and I'm honestly eagerly awaiting more renowned members of the Final Fantasy XIV community to put out guides on classes and just how to get better at this game. I don't know if that'll happen because I don't think Final Fantasy XIV is necessarily that type of game, but that does mean there's a niche that needs to be filled, so who knows. Basically what I'm saying is I'm looking at the diamond rating going, can I really play Dragoon good enough to get at that level? And if I can't, can I learn? And I think that willingness to get your ass kicked and learn is something that we really don't see in mainstream gaming anymore. More so coming from Destiny, where everybody just wants a handout. But we just see that a lot in competitive games nowadays, where people are crying and whining and bitching and complaining and moaning if they don't have their safety net called skill-based matchmaking. Or broader strokes with games like Elden Ring, where people are like, but where's my easy mode? No, just stop. It's not for you. And that's okay. So either get good or get out. Me, personally, I choose to recognize that, and depending on how much I care, do something about it. And I know I may be beating this point to death and rambling, but in my opinion, there is something special here. So the point that this difficulty rambling ultimately comes to is, I enjoy this so much that for the first time since Halo 3, I'm invested enough to actually care if I'm good or not in a multiplayer setting. That's not to say that everything is perfect. There is some trouble in paradise. One, I believe, stems from the dev team not knowing how this mode would be received, so it's understandable, and the other, confusing for a competitive game. The first point of contention is the game only has 3 maps, 2 of which have environmental hazards, and that's fine, fair enough. These maps are on hour to hour-and-a-half long rotations. I'm not entirely sure, actually. I've heard it's 60 minutes, I've heard it's 90. I didn't really pay attention when I was playing. I'm not sure why they designed the game mode to where you only play on one map for an hour before they rotate to the next instead of having all the maps available. I'm sure there's some dev diary somewhere that's 2 hours long that explains this. I just don't get it. Like, I understand why there's only 3 maps, because it's a new mode, you didn't know it was going to do well, fine, fair enough, it's niche, whatever, don't waste dev time if you don't know it's going to be good, and hey, that's something that could be rectified in the future. But making it to where you only play one map for like an hour, when each match is 3 to 5 minutes at most, that's a recipe to set players up to feel like the mode gets repetitive and boring fast. That being said, as far as the quantity of maps go, I have complete and utter faith that if the mode continues to be popular, it will be supported. This does legitimately feel like one of those issues that is a growing pain and can and will be solved in the future, if there's a demand for it. The more perplexing issue is apparently you can't queue with a team? I mainly have an issue with this in ranked. Again, I'm sure there's some reason behind it. I hear the Feast, the previous PvP mode, was rampant with win trading, but at the same time, Final Fantasy XIV is normally extremely social. You have your free companies, your friends list, your FC housing, all this nonsense. In fact, being social is something that Final Fantasy XIV kind of prides itself on, it's also one of those things that makes it feel way more welcoming. So it seems weird to not let people team up together by default in a competitive mode. More so because there's ranked competitive play, so your ranking can entirely boil down to 4 other people who can barely communicate. That seems like a recipe for frustration more than anything else. Everybody's going to be around the same skill level, and it's communication that makes the difference. I honestly kind of understand having solo queue only casual play, but not ranked play. And I hope it's something they look at for the future. But hey, at least there's not really rewards tied to it. Don't get me wrong, there are rewards tied to playing Crystal Conflict and just PvP in general that you can unlock from your season pass or by getting the currency from playing PvP and going to the various vendors to redeem it. There's also a set of armor that everybody gets for reaching level 25. There's also Gil, EXP, tomestones, stuff like that. What you get specifically for playing ranked, however, are these cute little adventurer plates. Okay, cool. Actually, I kind of want the diamond one. I know I'm not going to get any of the 1 to 100 in the world, but I can probably, maybe, hopefully, if I learn and play enough, get diamond or crystal, whatever it's called. And yeah, I think I'm rambling at this point, so we'll just cut the video here. All in all, I love the mode. Is it perfect? No. But what's there is a solid core that I really, really hope gets supported. And if there's a demand for it to be supported, I do believe it will be. But yeah, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Remember to like, but only if you did. Subscribe for more. Feel free to donate to my Patreon if you're feeling particularly generous. And above all else, stay frosty.